The relationship between Bad Bunny and Kendall Jenner emerged at a moment when both occupied distinct but equally dominant positions within global culture. Kendall, a central figure within the Kardashian-Jenner family, had carefully cultivated an image separate from the overt drama often associated with her sisters. Her focus on high fashion, runway work, and the expansion of her 818 tequila brand reinforced a narrative of calculated independence. Publicly, she maintained a reputation for discretion, rarely offering detailed commentary about her romantic life and favoring low-profile relationships over spectacle. Benito Antonio Martinez Ocasio, known professionally as Bad Bunny, followed a markedly different but equally disciplined ascent, from early work in Puerto Rico to becoming one of the most streamed artists globally. His rise was defined by genre expansion and cultural reach. He navigated language barriers while maintaining creative control, positioning himself as both a commercial force and a symbol of Latin cultural influence. By 2023, he had established a presence that extended beyond music into fashion, film, and global branding. When the two were first linked in February 2023, after being seen leaving a Los Angeles restaurant together, the pairing immediately generated attention. The union represented more than a celebrity relationship. It signaled a crossover between two expansive cultural ecosystems. Kendall embodied the American fashion elite, while Bad Bunny represented a reshaping of global pop through Latin music. Their connection suggested convergence rather than coincidence. Public reaction was swift. Skepticism accompanied intrigue. Commentators questioned whether the relationship served a strategic purpose, noting that Bad Bunny had recently increased his visibility in Los Angeles as part of his broader crossover trajectory. Online discourse quickly labeled the pairing a potential publicity maneuver, a theory fueled by the timing of high-profile appearances and professional collaborations. Throughout 2023, their relationship unfolded under intense observation. Each outing was analyzed, from casual dinners to courtside appearances. A Lakers game in May became particularly viral when social media users dissected their body language, suggesting Kendall appeared physically distant. Clips circulated widely, prompting speculation about imbalance or discomfort. Such interpretations, however, were based on isolated visuals rather than confirmed statements from either party. Simultaneously, moments of visible chemistry reinforced the authenticity narrative. Bad Bunny's mirror selfie featuring Kendall attracted significant attention, as did their collaboration in the Gucci Valigeria campaign. The campaign blended personal and professional imagery, placing them side by side within a luxury framework that aligned with both brands. Their presence together in fashion campaigns further blurred the distinction between romance and branding. Interviews during this period offered limited clarity. In a 2023 Vanity Fair cover story, Bad Bunny addressed the difficulty of maintaining privacy amid global fame. He spoke about protecting what he described as sacred aspects of his life, emphasizing that not everything required public explanation. While he did not detail the relationship directly, the commentary contextualized the pressures surrounding it. The relationship's trajectory suggested an understanding of its temporal nature. Reports later indicated that both entered the connection without expectation of permanence. Their schedules, fashion weeks, world tours, campaigns, and business obligations kept them in constant motion. Even at its peak, the partnership existed within logistical constraints that made sustained intimacy challenging. The initial chapter concluded quietly toward the end of 2023. There was no dramatic public statement or extended confrontation. Instead, the separation reflected what insiders described as a gradual recognition of incompatible timing. The split aligned with Bad Bunny's expressed desire for privacy and personal grounding. Yet the story did not end there. In mid-2024, the pair appeared to reconnect. A private midnight visit to the Louvre in Paris, documented through shared imagery, confirmed that they had resumed contact. The moment suggested renewed momentum, but it also demonstrated that the foundational challenges remained. The rekindled chapter was brief. By September 2024, they had stepped back again. The second separation reinforced the original understanding. The connection was meaningful, but not structurally sustainable. The absence of hostility allowed them to transition into what appeared to be distant but supportive public acknowledgement. The evolution of their relationship reflects a broader theme of convergence and divergence. Two individuals at the height of their respective careers intersected during a period of expansion. The result was a highly visible chapter defined by glamour, skepticism, and eventual recalibration. Their 2023 romance, while culturally significant, existed within a larger framework of timing, mobility, and brand management. Public scrutiny intensified almost immediately after Bad Bunny and Kendall Jenner's relationship became visible. What began as a quiet restaurant sighting in Los Angeles quickly transformed into a sustained cycle of analysis, speculation, and interpretation. Their movements were tracked with precision, and each appearance was framed either as confirmation of intimacy or evidence of imbalance. The relationship did not unfold privately. It unfolded in real time under a digital microscope. Skepticism became one of the defining characteristics of this chapter. A dominant theory circulating online described the pairing as strategic rather than romantic. Commentators pointed to Bad Bunny's growing presence in the United States and his efforts to expand beyond Spanish-language dominance into broader American mainstream spaces. His relocation to Los Angeles and increased fashion visibility were cited as contextual markers. Kendall's proximity, some argued, provided access to an entrenched celebrity ecosystem. The relationship was therefore interpreted by critics as mutually beneficial positioning rather than emotional alignment. This interpretation gained traction during high-profile outings. At a Lakers game in May 2023, footage of the pair seated courtside spread rapidly across social media. Viewers analyzed Kendall's posture and body orientation, concluding that she appeared physically angled away from Benito. Short clips circulated with captions suggesting discomfort or detachment. The analysis was speculative, but it dominated discourse. Body language became a proxy for relationship health, despite the absence of direct commentary from either individual. At the same time, other public moments complicated that narrative. Bad Bunny shared a mirror selfie that included Kendall in an intimate setting, signaling a willingness to present their connection openly. The image did not appear staged in a promotional context. Instead, it suggested a degree of comfort with shared visibility. Their joint participation in the Gucci Va Nigeria campaign further reinforced that comfort. The campaign placed them together in a polished, luxury framework, blending fashion credibility with celebrity intrigue. For observers, it became difficult to separate personal connection from brand alignment. The tension between authenticity and strategy remained unresolved throughout 2023. Interviews offered limited clarification. In his Vanity Fair cover story, Bad Bunny spoke at length about privacy and the pressure of exposure. He described the importance of preserving aspects of his life that were not designed for public consumption. While he did not directly define the status of his relationship with Kendall, the broader theme suggested an awareness of how public narratives can distort personal realities. Logistical realities soon became a more prominent factor than speculation. Both individuals maintained demanding international schedules. Kendall continued to participate in global fashion weeks, runway shows, and brand activations tied to 8 in Tequila. Benito was immersed in touring, recording, and cross-industry ventures. Sustaining consistent proximity under those conditions required coordination that neither lifestyle naturally allowed. Travel obligations frequently placed them in different countries, limiting time spent together outside structured events. By late 2023, reports began to describe a gradual cooling rather than a sudden rupture. There was no dramatic public fallout. Instead, insiders framed the separation as a mutual acknowledgement of timing constraints. The relationship had unfolded intensely, but briefly, shaped more by opportunity and chemistry than by long-term structural planning. Neither party publicly criticized the other, and the tone surrounding the split remained measured. The 2024 rekindling suggested that the connection retained emotional weight. Kendall's barefoot midnight stroll at the Louvre in June 2024, documented through shared imagery, signaled renewed closeness. The Paris setting, highly controlled and visually striking, reintroduced the relationship into public conversation. However, the rekindled chapter did not alter the underlying dynamics that had complicated the first phase. Their second attempt unfolded against the same backdrop of mobility and professional acceleration. Bad Bunny continued expanding his global footprint, while Kendall maintained her modeling and entrepreneurial commitments. The logistical strain remained constant. By September 2024, the renewed chapter concluded quietly. Again, there was no theatrical ending, only a transition back into separate professional trajectories. Throughout this period, the absence of overt hostility became notable. Unlike many celebrity breakups characterized by public disputes or indirect commentary, this separation was marked by restraint. Neither leveraged the split for narrative advantage. There were no diss tracks, no pointed interviews, and no public allegations. The distance appeared intentional and controlled. The broader cultural response, however, continued to frame the relationship as emblematic of something larger. For some, it represented the merging of Latin global dominance with American celebrity dynasties. For others, it symbolized the transactional nature of modern fame. These interpretations often said more about audience expectations than about the individuals involved. By the end of 2024, the relationship had shifted from active storyline to retrospective analysis. The arc had included initial intrigue, skepticism, visible chemistry, professional overlap, logistical friction, and eventual recalibration. It demonstrated how quickly high-profile connections can become public property, subject to narratives constructed by spectators rather than participants. In practical terms, the second separation confirmed that timing remained the decisive variable. Chemistry alone was insufficient to overcome the structural demands of two globally mobile careers. The relationship was neither explosive nor scandal-driven. It was constrained by scale. Two individuals operating at maximum professional velocity found limited space to build continuity. Part 2 of this story, therefore, is defined less by betrayal or drama, and more by exposure and endurance. Exposure amplified every gesture. Endurance proved difficult under constant movement. What remained consistent was the deliberate choice by both parties to avoid escalation. The public conversation may have been intense, but their own responses were notably controlled. By early 2026, the final shape of the Kendall Jenner and Bad Bunny chapter had become clearer, not through statements, but through trajectory. Their separation was no longer speculative, it was contextualized by the visible evolution of their individual lives. What began as a high-profile cultural crossover had settled into something quieter, two global figures continuing forward on separate familiar paths. The 2026 Super Bowl halftime show became a symbolic marker of that transition. Bad Bunny delivered a major performance, reinforcing his position as one of the defining artists of his era. Kendall Jenner was seen in the stands at Levi's Stadium, dancing and appearing supportive alongside her sister Kim Kardashian. Her presence was notable precisely because it lacked tension. There was no visible awkwardness, no attempt to avoid the spotlight. Instead, it suggested a recalibrated dynamic, former partners capable of occupying the same cultural space without public friction. That moment reframed their earlier narrative. Rather than a dramatic rupture, the relationship appeared to have resolved into distance without hostility. Kendall's visible support did not signal reconciliation, it signaled maturity. She was present, but not central. The spotlight remained on Benito's performance. In that sense, the appearance functioned as confirmation that the romance had moved firmly into the past. At the same time, Kendall's own trajectory suggested a return to stability. Reports linked her again to Devin Booker, a figure from her longer-term romantic history. Booker's blunt admission that he did not watch the halftime show added a subtle layer of competitive undertone to online discourse, but it did not alter the broader picture. Kendall appeared to be gravitating toward familiarity rather than experimentation, prioritizing continuity over spectacle. For Bad Bunny, early 2026 marked a visible return to foundational relationships. He was repeatedly seen with Gabriela Berlingeri, his longtime former partner. Dinner dates in Buenos Aires and São Paulo drew attention not because they were sensational, but because they suggested reconnection with someone who had known him before the peak of his global ascent. The tone surrounding these sightings differed markedly from the Kendall chapter. The emphasis was not on brand synergy or cross-market appeal, but on personal history. The restoration of a historic building in Puerto Rico, reportedly named La Gabriela, further fueled interpretations of a meaningful reconciliation. While neither party publicly framed the gesture as romantic confirmation, the symbolism resonated. It represented a return to origin rather than expansion outward. In contrast to the cosmopolitan settings associated with his time with Kendall, this development emphasized roots and permanence. These developments clarify the broader implications of the relationship's arc. The 2023 romance between Kendall Jenner and Bad Bunny was significant, not because it collapsed dramatically, but because it illustrated the constraints of scale. Both individuals operate within global infrastructures of fame that demand constant mobility and brand alignment. The relationship existed within that machinery, shaped by it and ultimately limited by it. Timing, rather than incompatibility, appears to have been decisive. Their initial split at the end of 2023 reflected schedule pressure and lifestyle divergence. The 2024 rekindling confirmed that emotional connection alone could not overcome structural imbalance. By the time they stepped back again in September 2024, the pattern had become evident. Their lives were synchronized briefly, but not sustainably. Long-term, the relationship will likely be remembered less as a personal failure and more as a cultural moment. It represented a temporary merging of two expansive audiences. For Kendall, it aligned her with a global Latin superstar at the height of his dominance. For Benito, it placed him inside one of America's most visible celebrity dynasties. The attention was intense, but it was also finite. The absence of scandal in its conclusion may ultimately define its legacy. There were no public accusations, no retaliatory interviews, and no narrative warfare. Instead, there was recalibration. Both individuals resumed trajectories consistent with their prior patterns, Kendall balancing fashion, entrepreneurship, and selective personal exposure. Benito reinforcing his artistic dominance while reconnecting with long-standing personal anchors.